who will replace John Collins for the Atlanta Hawks at the 4 spots position. So in case you forgot or did not know that the Hawks traded John Collins to the Utah Jazz this summer in the offseason, and the Hawks, they didn't get much out of that deal. For the most part, they received Rudy Gay and a second-round pick, but they did create a trade exception. It was what, 25 million, Jerome?
Yeah, about 25 million, and they did use Rudy Gay and that second-round pick to eventually acquire Patty Mills as well. So those assets did get used. Essentially, we traded John Collins for Patty Mills, effectively.
Yeah, so it wasn't a sexy deal, but most fans, if you are a fan of the Hawks, then you most likely knew that John Collins' time with the Hawks was running out, so it was only a matter of time before he was going to go play elsewhere. But the big question heading into training camp in this season is who is going to take his spot at the 4 position. Now, we pretty much know what the starting five is going to be for the most part. Obviously, Trey and DeJounte in the backcourt, and Clint Capella at the 5, and to be honest, it may wear at some point in time where Clint Capella may get traded before the trade deadline. That's been going on in the offseason as well. So depending on what Quinn Snyder wants to do, it may be where Onyeka Okongwu may take that 5 position, but most likely it's going to be Clint for right now. But as far as the 4 spot position, there are 3 candidates that I think that can take over that position, but there's one guy that I think should get it. It looks like it's going to be between Saddiq Bey, DeAndre Hunter, and Jalen Johnson. Now, before I get into who should take that position, with Saddiq Bey and DeAndre Hunter, it's actually going to be quite interesting on what Quinn is going to do, because he is known to be a offensive genius, which he is, and he can get creative with certain lineups or matchups. So I think one scenario could be where DeAndre Hunter can take that 4 spot position. He has the size and the skill set to play the power forward position, and has Saddiq Bey slide over to the 3 spot, because Quinn Snyder, he does love Saddiq with his shooting. That's what Quinn is all about, shooting, getting those 3s up, and Saddiq Bey playing at the 3 could be a possibility for him to start instead of coming off of the bench. I could see that scenario. Or as far as who I think should get the starting position, should be Jalen Johnson. So I think it should be where you still have Dre at the 3 and then Johnson at the 4. Reason why I think Jalen should get the starting role is because he has shown a lot of promise this season for sure. And what I like about him is his versatility. And even though that some may say John Collins is a better defender than Jalen, or a better post-up player than Jalen, but Jalen has multiple ways to score. Now, the only thing that can prevent him from getting the starting position is his ability to shoot the ball. He's not a bogey or a Saddiq Bey efficiency shooter. He can shoot it, but the question is, can he do it on a consistent basis? That's the thing that's probably going to determine, or the tiebreaker rather, if he's going to get that starting role. But everything else, he can handle the ball. I consider him as a point forward. He can handle the ball, push the floor up, and get other people involved. And that's his best attribute, is to get everybody involved with his passing ability. So I think it should be Jalen, but like Jerome said, this training camp is around the corner, so we'll see.
Yeah, Jalen Johnson he's definitely the real wild card on this team as a whole. There's a wide gap between what he can do, or what he possibly could do in the future, and what he's proven to do so far. Because I think in that 4 spot, what we're going to miss from John Collins is definitely defense. And even though I would say that Sadiq Bey and DeAndre Hunter are better players than Jalen Johnson is the only player that could potentially replace what John Collins leaves on defense. But I think the big reason why he probably won't get the starting nod to start the year is mainly because his shooting. I think John Collins' shooting, even though it fell off a cliff last year, it definitely was a valuable thing to pair with Clint Capella with. It was the reason why he stayed on the floor. So I think that really is what gives Sadiq Bey the edge up on both Hunter and Jalen Johnson. The fact that he's just simply a knockdown shooter. And Trey has proven with Gallinari when he was on the team that he really works well with stretch fours. So I think that's the biggest reason why I think Sadiq Bey is going to start at that 4 spot. Unlike DeAndre Hunter, his decision-making is a lot quicker. DeAndre Hunter has the physical tools for it, 6'8", 225 pounds. I think he has the tools, but one, his decision-making isn't quite where you want it to be. You really, when you pass him on the ball, you really want him to be able to take 2 dribbles and then make a decision, whether that's shooting it, passing it, or driving to the rim. A lot of times it takes DeAndre Hunter at least 4 to 5 dribbles to really decide what he wants to do. By then, the defense is caught up to him, and it just ends up slowing down the offense. But when Sadiq Bey gets the ball, you already get the sense that he knows exactly what he wants to do with that ball. So just having him at the 4 spot would make things a lot easier on Trey. However, that defense is worrisome when it comes to Bey.
Yeah, I was going to say, but Sadiq Bey, he's a terrific shooter. I certainly think he was a great pickup that we got before the trade deadline, this past trade deadline. So he was a great pickup. So shout out to Landry Fields and Kyle Korver and the Hawks front office to getting him. He was a great pickup. But as you mentioned, the defense may be atrocious if Sadiq Bey gets the 4 spot. But you do have to consider about, like you said, the decision making and how the offense is going to run. And I said it before, when he was in starting lineup with DJ and Trey and all those guys, not only the offense was a lot more efficient, you see the ball moving from side to side and playing at a faster pace. And you even seen that when we beat the Miami Heat in the play-in. And you saw the difference when we faced them in the playoffs with them trapping Trae Young and getting blitzed. And you saw they were playing with a faster pace and the ball's moving around, and we pretty much beat them in every category. So, you have to take that into consideration. As you mentioned, that's why I say Jalen Johnson may be the best one because, again, he's bigger. He has the physical tools to play at the power forward position. You still need that defense. So if Jalen is able to get more consistent with his three-point shot, I think he could be the guy.
Yeah, I think that's really probably the preferred option for Quinn Snyder because the way Quinn Snyder plays, he plays in transition a lot. He wants to get shots in fast break a lot. He wants the team to move fast and think fast. Jalen Johnson, he's a guy, even though we don't really know exactly what he is as an on-ball defender, what he is as a switchable defender, because Nate didn't really ask him to do too much of that. We only really saw that when Quinn Snyder came in and he was asked to do a little bit more on defense. But we do know that he can make plays on defense. He can get in passing lanes. He can get chased down blocks. And he can also move the ball around offensively. He can dribble as well. And he can be a good rim runner just like John Collins was as well, with the passing added on top of that. If he's able to get around screens and stay in front of his man, switch on to guards and give them problems, it's going to be really hard for Quinn Snyder to not put him in the starting lineup. Even if the shooting continues to be a little bit more iffy, I think Jalen Johnson just solves a lot of those issues that the Hawks want from the 4 spot. The one problem that would come up, though, is I think DeAndre Hunter especially, but also DeJounte would have to change up their play style a little bit more. Their healthy diet of mid-range jumpers would have to definitely turn into threes with Jalen in the starting lineup because you're just not going to have that space to operate in the mid-range like you would if Sadiq Bey was starting. If Sadiq Bey is in the starting lineup, then Hunter and DeJounte, they can really do exactly what they've always done, the play style that they're comfortable with. Even though in general, I think Hunter really should just temper down on the mid-range jumpers. We already got Trey and DeJounte shooting those shots. He's more valuable out on the wing taking threes. But I do want to acknowledge Hunter's possibility at being at the 4 because he definitely has the size for it as well, but just going to need more than 4 rebounds a night. I think if
gotta bring it, buddy.
Yeah, if he's averaging 4 rebounds a night, we're just gonna get outboarded. And even with Clint Capella out there, it's just not gonna be enough against those bigger teams. And he's got to be a little more physical too, especially on the defensive end. We drafted him top 5 because we thought he could be a real type of lockdown defensive player. And if he's starting at the 4 and Julius Randle is going off like he usually does against the Hawks in the regular season, then it's just not going to be good for us. And we're better off just starting him at the 3 spot where he can be the more physical guy. And just go ahead and just starting Saddiq Bey despite the defensive challenges, or starting Jalen Johnson despite the shooting. One wild card I do want to throw in there, and I've referenced this before.
Sure. Well, I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, Onyeka Okongwu.
Yep.
I always throw out this scenario. If he just decides like, hey, look, you guys are either gonna have to start me or you're gonna have to trade me, and they still can't figure out anything to do with Clint Capella, there is always that outside shot of them starting him at the 4 spot. It can be really clunky offensively, I will say that. But I think defensively, that would very much work just because I think their strengths really work well with each other. Clint Capella's dominating rim protecting presence, get a lot of boards. Onyeka Okongwu, he can switch on to anybody on the defensive end. And I think defensively it would really work. But the stuff I mentioned with Jalen Johnson and Hunter and DeJounte having to change their play style with him, it would be twofold with Onyeka Okongwu. Like, at that point, like when you're relying on Murray and Hunter to be your 2 best shooters in the starting lineup, I don't know how well that's going to work out in the 21st, in this day and age, in this NBA. Maybe like 10 years ago that would probably work, but nowadays when you need to shoot threes, I don't know if Okongwu and Capella are the best options at the front court. But it is an option, though. That's a wild card.
Yeah, you probably need, because you need to have that balance of defense and shooting threes. And as you mentioned, Okongwu, he could be that wild card there because we all know what he can do defensively. And I wouldn't be surprised if he turns out to be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. We've seen him play tremendous defense against one of the best big men in the league, such as Giannis and Joel Embiid. And to me, I think his natural position is a center spot.
Yeah.
I think that's where he's a better fit for. But then again, with his ability to shoot the ball, he's expanded his jump shot, and we've seen Quinn Snyder call out out of bounds timeouts where he gives the ball to Okongwu and he's able to shoot the 3. So I think that the center spot is his best position. So then again, I'm not sure if Quinn, what he has up his sleeve, I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to figure it out, the best option. So yeah, I think Jalen should get the starting role. Then again, as you mentioned, Saddiq Bey and Dre, each of them have their unique way of getting that spot. So it all comes down to which matchup or lineup that Quinn thinks is going to be the best matchup, the most effective lineup. So it'd be interesting.
Do you think it's going to be some type of like rotating type of starting lineup where it's not going to be the same every single night? Because the Hawks haven't really done that. When they've chosen starters, they're the starters throughout the rest of the year, especially when it comes to Nate and Lloyd Pierce in the past. But do you think it's going to be some type of rotating thing where they change it depending on the team they go up against?
It could because and this is why you have to give Landry Fields and Kyle Korver a lot of credit of getting Quinn in early last season with 20 games left for him to get to know the personnel and his guys and things of that nature. So I think Quinn, I'm betting that he already has a good sense of his guys and how they play. So I think he already knows what he wants to do. But to your question, it wouldn't be surprising if he decides to change or tweak the lineup a little bit. If it's where, okay, let's see what Dre does at the 4, then we'll slide Sadiq at the 3, or it just be where we just keep Dre at this spot at the 3 and then Jalen at the 4. So I think we could see that in the preseason. I think, but when the regular season starts, then we could get a pretty much good idea of what the starting lineup is going to be. But the good thing is the Hawks have many options to choose from, and even though it may be hard for Quinn Snyder and his coaching staff to narrow it down, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
so
and injuries always tend to pop up for every single team. So we may see all 3 of these guys have their time at the power forward spot, and we'll get to see a good look at how effective they can all be as well. I think in many ways, just assuming that Trey, DeJounte, and the centers kind of have the standard year that we all think they're going to have, that forward spot, from either the 3 and the 4, like, those guys are really going to be the X factors when it comes to how successful this team is. And their play is going to drive really how well this team does. And it's going to be really interesting to see what Quinn Snyder does with the 4 spot, because he has quite a lot of options here.
Yeah, he has a lot of options, and as I mentioned, it's going to be a good problem to have. But we'll see how the team plays out throughout the preseason. Then we'll see what happens when the regular season kicks off.